excited to share with you about some of the things that we really lay our ministry on, and some of the models that we use. The last time we were together, some of you expressed that you really wanted to know how we approach ministry with the students, and how do we approach ministry really just in general, because it's not just to students, it's to the campus. And so we said, okay, we'll do that. So today what we hope to do, and briefly, is just share with you some information about Empowered by the Spirit, which is the document that the U.S. bishops wrote in 1985 regarding campus ministry, a model of discipleship, or a path of discipleship that we use with our students, and then in two forms. There's an evangelical Catholic form and then the focus model. So we're going to share all of those with you. We share this with all of our student leaders at the beginning of the year so that they understand what they are operating in and how we approach things. So we'll start with Empowered by the Spirit. In 1985, the bishops wrote a document that has really set the course for all of campus ministry around the country. Whether you are at a small place or a large place, or a Catholic college or a secular college, these are some things that hold true for all. And campus ministry is the intersection of higher education and the church. It's that crossroads that we find. And so it's not just here at the Newman Center. The bishops would say that wherever the church meets higher education is where campus ministry happens and occurs. And so there are so many opportunities for that to happen anywhere. And certainly that is how we hope to be involved in the mission on campus. And so it's very particular to this. And so what that also means is that all the baptized people on campus have a call to ministry. And that's you. As we established that we're not Catholic when we're born, but we get baptized into that mission and that ministry at various times in our lives. And so all the faithful on campus, by virtue of their baptism, share in the task of bringing the humanizing light of the gospel to bear on the life of the academic community. They are called to live out Christian values while engaging in the teaching, learning, research, public service, and campus life that constitute the academic world. And so we see you as campus ministers in that sense. And so we appreciate what you do and all the various ways that you do that. And we know that we are not aware of all the ways that you do that. All the baptized are guided by professional campus ministers, which is where we come in. So the other piece is that the bishop said all campus ministry should have, in some form, these 6 aspects. They're not going to tell us how to do it. They might give us some suggestions, but all of these pieces must be present in the campus ministries and all of the different places that it occurs. So there must be an element of forming the faith community. Not just the gathering and the outreach, but the cultivation of that faith community. Certainly we can agree that Mass is the number one place that happens. But we're called to form the faith community and reach out. There should be some element of students being able to appropriate their faith, to make their faith their own. They are college students. You know more than many how we want them to take responsibility for things and do things for themselves. And this is one of those areas. Forming the Christian conscience, we should have guidance for them and for all, as they make decisions that can be difficult. Educating for justice and service, not just educating for justice and service, but the ability to live it out. Facilitating personal development, which includes a lot of things. Spiritual direction, prayer, developing a prayer life, some discernment about who they want to be, what major they want to have, how are they called to be a human being and not just a human doing, how are they called to have that holistic approach to being that whole person in Christ. And so there's lots of different things that fall into that. And then developing leaders for the future is really the forward-looking piece of that. The last two really go hand in hand, but I always look at the fifth one as the now and then the developing leaders portion is the future. And so it's what kind of vocational assistance are we giving them? The main three vocations, living out and being involved in the church in the future. So at a bird's eye glance, that's empowered by the Spirit. And so I'm going to turn it over to Joanne, and she's going to add to that.
All right, so Angel mentioned that this document was written in 1985. Happens to be the year I was born, so it's a little bit of an old document. So there are some critiques that, the bishops, there's some calling to say, bishops, redo this document, but I think the core basis of Empowered is very strong. The one thing that a lot of groups and campus ministries nationwide are also including is the new evangelization and what that means in our church. So the model that I'm going to talk about is through the Evangelical Catholic. Evangelical Catholic is an organization that started in the, was it 80s, 90s? Not that long ago, but they're crafting this model in a path of evangelization. It started with just students, but they're actually now doing parishioners. The work that Trent Rash and Lisa Rose are doing with the small group communities it's based on this model. It's not something that they necessarily created in my master's classes for theology. I saw a lot of these same diagrams in some form or another, ranging back to at least the 60s from what I saw. Might have existed longer than that, but to give you an idea, it's not a new idea, it's just a little bit of a refreshed idea. So I'm going to show you three different diagrams, we'll call them, that are based on the Evangelical Catholic. The first one is the pyramid here that we have. It's relatively easy to understand, I would hope. But the idea is that, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you got to start at the bottom and before you can get up to the top. So the first is that really our goal is to connect everyone to Christ. If what we're doing is not connecting people to Christ, why are we doing it? If we have an event and the main goal of that is to not deeper someone's connection with Christ, then we should not be doing this event as a campus ministry. And then the way that, so this is really the core that we are trying to make sure that everybody has a strong foundation. Up here at the top is the intentional ministry. It's everything actually that we do here at the Newman Center is this top tiny little triangle, so it kind of puts things in perspective. But the idea is that you kind of you can grow into a deeper faith with Christ through person-to-person ministry. If you look at the Gospels, Jesus had 12 disciples. He sent them out 2 by 2. It's when two or three are gathered, I am present. Is that right? I'm phrasing that wrong. It just didn't roll off the tongue like I thought it was going to. But the idea is that we are not meant to experience Christ solely within ourselves. It's through others, and that's how Christ set up his ministry. And it's through this person-to-person ministry, and we see this a lot with our students. We see it when they bring in a friend, maybe from their fraternity or sorority or their class or their other student organization, and bring them into the Newman Center. We hope that many of you will do that as well with your faculty members, other faculty and staff that that are Catholic, and say, hey, the Newman Center is doing things. They're helping deepen my relationship in Christ. How about you as well? That's really how we operate. Jesus did not, he did preach to the masses, but he invested in a few and went out from there. So that's where that person-to-person ministry is very important. And then intentional ministry is up at the top. It's kind of, again, going with what Angel was saying, those 6 aspects, rounding out the person and preparing individuals and preparing the community to be better at sharing the good news. This I'm actually going to go through pretty quickly. The discipleship wheel is something that Evangelical Catholic uses it's kind of like a blueprint for making sure that your relationship with Christ is really well-rounded. I actually received this from somebody online, so it's not exactly the words I would like to use, but you'll get the idea. The idea is that in a wheel, your main post here is Christ. Christ is present at the center. But you need all the elements to have a really healthy relationship. If any of these spokes were cut off, your wheel wouldn't work right. So the first 2 here, word and prayer, or if you could say scripture and prayer. You can also look at it as a vertical communication with God. The word is God speaking to you. Prayer is your response back to him. Your horizontal baseline is how we connect with each other in community. So fellowship or community would be one way to put it. It's your participation in some kind of faith community, and then evangelization and reaching out. If we had a faith community and it was closed off, then eventually it would die off. So it's important that evangelism is sharing that good news is an important component. And it's all focused on, it says the obedient Christian. I like to call it like obedience to the church. The idea that you are growing in the church's teaching, you're participating in the community as a whole, and helping to kind of further the mission as a whole. The last thing that I want to talk about is the baseball diamond. It's really, the idea is that it's cyclical, but I think the baseball diamond makes it very easy to talk about because you have very good key points. So down here you have the world at home base. So if you're thinking about a batter going around the bases, that's kind of what we're talking about, helping people go around the bases. So right here you have the world. You could call these people non-believers, those that are not connected to your community, whatever that may be. And the idea is that you have evangelization happens first. If you walked up to somebody, say on campus, another faculty member or student, and said, let me tell you what the church teaches about the death penalty, that really is not going to go over well with trying to get them to encounter Jesus. You want to maybe have a conversation with them first, have a good relationship with that person before you start to share your faith beliefs with them. So the idea is that there's this evangelization baseline here. EC cuts it up in half, so if you split that in half, this first half is considered pre-evangelization. So those are events that are just welcoming. For some of you, this type of event might be pre-evangelization. It's nothing too intense, too scary. For the students, we have a lot of welcome events, social events, intramurals, the welcome barbecue on the quad that we have, a lot of things that are pretty low-key. It gets people to say, hey, I like this community. They're not weird. That's a very big concern for students and a lot of people for that matter. And just that entry point. Like if you think about it in terms of a house, if you have, this is very appropriate with Halloween coming up, if you have a very scary front porch, nobody is going to enter your house, right? Like you have to get to the porch before you can come in the home. So this is why we're saying we need to have a very welcoming and open front porch. The second half of the baseline is a little bit more intentional. Well, it's all intentional, but more intentional relating to sharing the good news. So that's where we see a lot of mission proclamation happening. So saying this is what Jesus came for. This is what we're here for as people. For our students, this happens a lot in retreats. It happens in small group Bible studies. For a lot, this happens about coming to Mass and hearing the Word and experiencing, the Eucharistic celebration. And so the idea is that once people encounter the community, hear about Jesus, then they can choose yes or no to become a believer. So a believer is someone who says, yes, I believe in Jesus. I believe in putting them at the center of my life. But as we know through the scriptures, once somebody says yes to Jesus, that doesn't make them a perfect person. It doesn't make them ready to also go out and spread that to others. So we need to establish them before they can really be strong disciples. So that's also, EC uses the word establishing. It can also be considered catechesis as well. So this is split up into two again. And so you have your initiatory catechesis and your perfective catechesis. And so initiatory catechesis is really like, if any of you have ever been involved in the RCIA process, either going through it yourself or helping to sponsor through, they don't start at the very deep stuff. They start at the basic tenets. They're looking at the Gospels, Jesus' message, Jesus' teachings, and getting that strong foundation and what it means to be a believer and what it means to be a disciple before you get to the deeper stuff, which is more the perfective catechesis. So this is where, once you have that strong understanding and the morality of Christ, then you can have a conversation that on a hot button topic, abortion or, like we mentioned earlier, the death penalty, those sorts of things. But again, you wouldn't want to say, yeah, you believe in Jesus, let's have this super deep conversation about euthanasia. You want to do something, you want to really bring them along. You would never do that in your classes with your students. You wouldn't say, let's dive right in. You have to sometimes start at the beginning. Or, they should have had prereqs to get that far. So really, once they're educated, at some point, they're ready to say, yes, I want to be a disciple. I want to not only believe, but I want to do something about it. Once you're a disciple, and I would assume that many of us in this room might be as well, that doesn't make you a perfect person. There's always going to be ongoing catechesis but then there's the equipping to do something about it, to go out into the world. With our students, one of the models that they use with Focus is that they enter a small group and participate in that for a while, and then the small group leader has a conversation with them about saying, like, do you want to take this to the next step? Are you going to put Jesus at the center of your life, and are you going to do something about it? So a lot of them enter into what they call discipleship relationships. With Evangelical Catholic, they call it one-on-one mentoring relationships. All it really means is essentially, I want to take this to the next step. I want to really make some movement, take some next steps in my life about where I want to go with my relationship. Maybe changing my lifestyle, maybe doing something to help others also know about the good news that I know. So we're equipping them here. For our students, that is done a lot in ministry retreats. We send them over the summer, we sent them to the Evangelical Training Camp. Over the winter, they went to Focus's Student Leadership Conference. So there's a lot of ways that we help to teach them, help them to grow in their faith. So then you get to your third base, which is a worker. I don't really like the term worker. I think leader is a really good term. It's somebody that is then ready to go out and engage the world again. Somebody who's really well prepared to say, yes, I'm going to go and help walk with somebody around this baseline again, or walk with multiple people around this baseline. And so I think, is that my last slide? Yes, it is. So that was one model through the Evangelical Catholic, and as many of you know as teachers, there's many models to many things. So this is another model that we use here at the Newman Center through Focus that I'll let Angel talk about.
So this is actually very similar to some of the language that Joanne was using in the other model, but since we have 4 Focus missionaries, I don't know if you're aware of that, you might be, and they come to us and they are with us for a year. Some of them stay for the next year, some get moved to other places, but they use this model in their work, and it's very similar, and it's been very successful in engaging students, I would say, on that baseball diamond path. And so a word you hear a lot in the Focus model is the term spiritual multiplication. You know, if you invest this idea of, just not trying to convert the masses, but if you can get one person or 2 people that you can invest in and help them become a believer, help them become a disciple, walk with them, help them learn how to live their faith every day, if you can do that, and then encourage them to do the same, and then they go and get and invest in 2 more people, and then those people go and invest in 2 more, then eventually you will have so many people investing in others in meaningful ways that will, in a sense, like you will be able to transform the world, is the vision that is set in the Focus model. And so it's very similar. They have a lot of those welcoming, evangelizing kind of events. I mean, we do them all together. But this is kind of just something you will hear that's just a little different, but I like to think of it as this is what they do on that, second baseline, walking with, investing in. I mean, they kind of, they do it on the first baseline too, but that really walking with and helping someone learn to do that for themselves and then go help someone else. So that's, in a nutshell, their model as well. So these are all of the different things that we use together in our ministry. I know we kind of said a lot of them, but we wanted to open it up for questions to see if, what your thoughts were. Or, yes?
Can you just tell us a little bit about, specifically, what happened here? Do you
Sure.
have different groups that get together and all the time?
Sure. Well, let's say, for example, when we, in a very practical way, when we go to implement the baseball diamond here at this campus, what that looks like is April, May, we are trying to gather as many names of freshmen from as many different places as we can, and we work hard for that. We will ask, Catholic schools. There's a great group nationally called the Newman Connection that has really stepped up and helped us quite a bit, everyone around the country quite a bit, in helping to get names from high schoolers. So we work hard to get as many names as we can. We work summer welcome, and we get names that way. And then, I think we had about, how many names? We had about 500 or 600 names this time?
650.
650 when we started the school year. And so all of those people get a packet, but we also have their numbers, and when the school year starts, people are calling them personally to invite them to things. We have all of our Welcome Week events, but the power of the personal invitation is taken very seriously here in campus ministry. We can send emails, we can send packets, we can have signs and all that, but someone inviting you makes a world of a difference. And so we'll have all the welcome events, some students will register, and then after that first week, that's when a lot of strong work really begins, where our focus missionaries, our students who are leading Bible studies, which is we have about 35 to 40-ish, no, maybe 45 Bible studies. So these students who are leading, they're having call parties, and they're splitting the list, and they're trying to call as many people as they can to say, would you like to come? Would you like to be a part of my Bible study? We have them at all different times. We can accommodate your schedule. We can make that work. And our first priority is to try to get as many people as possible into small groups, because they work. It's that if you can introduce them to the community and get them in the community, get them connected, they have friends to go to church with, friends to come to other things with, they might come to Holy Hour, they start to know people, and they're more likely to come around. And then from there we might say, hey, we have this freshman overnight retreat. You want to come and do that and build more relationships? But we don't hit them with everything right away. It's go to Mass, join a small group, maybe come to our Wednesday night event. We don't tell them about everything, because we try to set them on a path. And then once we can get them to those things, then we tell them about the other things. Come to freshman overnight. Now come on Awakenings. Come on the big Awakenings retreat. Oh, now you went on Awakenings. Oh, you're not in a small group? Why don't you join a small group? We try to, everything feeds into the small groups, out of the small groups, and back to the small groups. Because those weekly small Christian communities are extremely powerful. And so that's how we kind of move them
So do
along.
you have student leaders for all of these groups, and it's not you two?
No, it's not us. They wouldn't come.
Well, the other thing is too,
Father doesn't have.
with 45
Wow.
groups, there's no way we can lead 45.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, so we depend on them, but also too, we train them, they're trained in ETC, they're trained by the focus missionaries, they're formed by disciples of the focus missionaries, but it's very dependent on them, and I think Angel's right too, it's a lot more appealing when it's a bunch of sophomores.
See, I had no idea you had that many Bible study groups.
And just to show you how it works, so say this is one of our focus missionaries that invests in 2 people. Well, these 2 people start a Bible study. And I might have 6 people in the Bible study, and 2 of the people in the Bible study really want to take the next step. So those 2 people get in. And that's how we get this.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how we've grown to 45 and
That's great.
keep growing.
And about the 5th generation of disciples, as I've been here and it started, we're on the 5th or 6th generation. Of course, people have left of disciples. It's really beautiful. Like they go through this, they talk about, oh, I'm your grandfather. There's a whole line of chain, and it's really neat to see.
Yes.
I'm curious, what do you find that motivates the students to get involved? Is it because they're searching for something? Is it because they're lacking something? Is it family background? I guess when I think of what you're doing, which is great, Ash Wednesday,
Yes.
it's a total capacity, it's over capacity. What motivates them on that one day out of 365? They may not attend Mass regularly, or maybe never, but on that day, what are they looking for?
Well, I think that's a
Get some
really...
free action?
They may not all be
Well, and
This is true.
the reasons are, I think, as varied as the people who come. But I would say, I think that they're very attracted to truth, beauty, joy, and what they see is this person has something that's really, they have joy, there's just something about them. I want that. I want what they have, or wow, they've got some really good friends, or every year, because of what we've learned from some of these folks that have taught us some good things, we put a guy up at the Welcome Mass who talks about his involvement in small groups and what it has meant to him. And the last 2 years, it's been a fraternity guy. And at least for the last 2 years, when he's been, when it's different guys each time, when they've come down, they've had a friend that said, you know, I'm really thinking about what you said. You know, I want something different, or I haven't gone to church since high school, and I'm a senior in college. I'm thinking about it now, you know, and there's reasons why we put a guy up, because if a girl does it, guys are going to think, oh, that's a girl thing, and so then they don't do it. But so
Well, and I think
I wish that was
too,
the case. But
like John Paul II in the New, he talked about, you know, yes, we need to evangelize the world, but we need to start within our own churches. And he said we should be that light that shines so brightly that others can't help but be attracted. And that's what we're seeing in our students. They're becoming that light. There are these people out on campus that are good people, and that others say, I don't have that, I want that. And that's where they come from. And so, you know, our Pope was pretty smart in saying that, and I think we're seeing it being lived out in reality here too.
I would say, I would just emphasize that the reasons are as varied as the students themselves. There's all sorts of stories. And as a priest, hearing all the confession, it's amazing. And I would just like to just feel, John Paul II was a huge champion of the new evangelization, but it was Paul VI.
Yes. Sorry.
yes,
My question, I guess, is along the line of Russ. It sounds like you've got everybody coming in that's a stranger to begin with, either as first year, first semester freshmen, experiencing away from home and all that stuff, all the way up to graduate students that have been around the barn at least 4 years. And then, of course, they've been preached at by parents and school counselors and so forth that one goal of education is employment. And so you got to, you know, you didn't come here to party. Always, some do. And, you know, I just wonder if it isn't a balancing act for them to be able to titrate between one thing to the next thing. And it sounds like it's an amazing configuration of administrative, like a massive puzzle that you guys have to.
I mean, it is a puzzle. It's to me, it's fun. But I think what's interesting is for them, they really, I mean, a lot of them, and I think Father Joseph can attest to this as well. I mean, we have, over 50 students here on a Monday night at 11:30 p.m. to do adoration, you know, as a sacrificial hour. Because for them, this is not another club. I mean, maybe for some they're finding friends here and that's good, but this is not another club. They might have friends, you know, in a lot of different places, friends in their sororities, fraternities, the different organizations they're a part of, but this is what feeds it. And that's really the light and the attraction, I think, that others see, because we want them to be in all of those groups, because that's how that light's going to get shined in different places, where if we all stayed in the Newman Center, that it definitely wouldn't happen. I don't know if that speaks to your...
I think it's a great point, just real quick, sorry. But I think one of the beauties of the faith, as you said earlier, truth, beauty, and goodness attracts people more than anything else. And you all have beautiful fields that you belong to, but the faith appeals to everybody of all intelligence levels, of all interests. And there's something for everyone. So I think that's a difference between the Newman Center and whatever veterinarian club or whatever the case may be. Is just the mass, no pun intended, the mass appeal.
It's interesting. I enjoyed the presentation, by the way. It's very consistent with the findings of the Pew Survey on why people leave churches, why the conservative churches are growing into mega churches and so on. They're all based on small group. People are looking for something. If they don't find something that some of us would say is healthy, they're going to find something weird. And they will eventually be strangled. The other thing I think is interesting, and I'm kind of thrilled as a social scientist, is something that I think Aquinas recognized a few centuries ago. The principles of the natural order are isomorphic, I think that's the right word, right, with the spiritual order, you know, and, you know, this is kind of nice the way he's doing that. The only thing I would say is, if you use the word evangelical today, it kind of was, and I heard
We try to reclaim it a little bit.
That is actually why Evangelical Catholic named it that, because they said, we want to reclaim this word for what it means, which is sharing the good news.
Yeah, which is quite different than hammering somebody with
Yes.
some political message.
Father, for those who go to Mass quite regularly during the week, there's always about 30 or 40 students there. Are those focus, or are they a combination of, or are they either?
Yeah, I would make a distinction. I would say we've had a strong campus ministry, and if you can just imagine putting 4 recent graduates whose full-time job it is to go out and meet students and recruit, they're going to get a bulk of the evangelization work out there. So they've said, and even when Focus first came, we said what works best. And they said places like Mizzou, we have a large state school, we have a home base in the Newman Center. Some Newman Centers don't. We have a large home base to work out of. We have strong structure of campus ministry in place already. And so that allows Focus to do what they do best, and that is to get out on campus, start meeting people, signing people up for Bible studies. And so and even though Evangelical Catholic and the Focus do the same thing, have the same markets, the world would consider them competitors. They see themselves as friends. And so it's a beautiful thing to see. And so I would say the same situation is with here too. It's like a hand in the glove. It's one organization.
Well, it's very impressive to see so many.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something that from the beginning we said, we learned from some other campuses that had Focus before we did, that we are one, like if we work together in one ministry, we have the same mission, whoever is here. And so they have that really important role, that they do, and we have our important roles, and all of those roles work together to fulfill the mission. So we're all on the same team, and we, and thank goodness for that, because they're very dynamic, and I think the increase in the last couple of years really has been with their support and us being able to support them, and then our students have just become much bolder. They're just so much more bold in asking their classmates and their friends and their roommates and their, maybe than they used to be. They were a little bit more, not everyone, but a little more scared. They kind of, to do that. Certainly not everyone, but now as a whole, I would say they are much more comfortable and confident to do that.
And if I could say, one of the strengths of the new evangelization was to take that high and lofty church teaching that nobody understands, and to break it down into a level where the average person could appreciate its beauty. That being said, our students are quite bright too, so they just soak this stuff up. And that, I think, really empowers a lot of our students to go out and they know the process, the baseball diamond. They know they're not supposed to get into all these tough issues, but they know how to talk about them, and they know how to hold it for themselves too. So I think we have to appreciate the brilliance our church has given us in that new evangelization.
So I know we only have a few minutes left, but we did actually have a couple questions for you, because as we start to really renew this faculty ministry, we've had it for many years, but really renew it and make sure that it is what you need and what you want. We just have a couple of questions. So if you have something to share now, that would be great, and if not, you can always share it later. But in line with what the parish already offers to its members in terms of going to Mass, small groups availabilities, there's service, faith formation through classes like what Sister Karen hosts. What can we host for you that would meet a need that you have as faculty that cannot be found elsewhere?